I decided to do my next video on intervention strategies because I know that in this last summer term, staff will be prioritising certain groups of pupils, whether that be from the data that we have about distance learning, and whether some pupils were more disadvantaged by that than others, or perhaps looking at new data from our summer end of year assessments and determining new priority pupils who need some intervention. And some staff may even be determining PD priorities for next academic year. So I was thinking about intervention strategies and what would have the biggest impact. I'm sure any teachers watching this will be aware of their priority pupils that they teach, who probably include their PPG or disadvantaged pupils. But I think it can be dangerous sometimes to think of those pupils as one group, because they will have different needs, different gaps in their knowledge or skills, and a quick round of intervention of some sort of intervention strategy for just those pupils isn't necessarily going to be sufficient to help them catch up, and they need a more personalised approach, and we need to keep assessing and replanning for all pupils. So quality first teaching should absolutely include deliberate strategies that target closing gaps for priority pupils, like targeted questioning, giving additional feedback, or strategic seating plans. But quality first teaching as a strategy alone, one thing, it involves good attendance. It will assume good attendance. And if a student's been missing from school, then they miss out on that. And as we know, pupil premium or disadvantaged students often have a lower attendance rate than their peers. So one challenge is to consider additional ways that we can provide support. So potentially outside of the classroom, or when they are in school, making sure that we provide it for them. So in the rest of this presentation, I look at the impact of the following strategies, whether they are in class or out of class strategies for intervention. So firstly, peer tutoring is rated by the EEF as +5 for its level of impact. This is one of the highest scores. And while it's possible for a peer tutoring programme to have no impact, extensive research shows that it definitely can have positive impact on progress. So some of those key ways that I read about making it more effective are to ensure that there is structure in the pupil conversations, and also ensuring that whatever the older student is teaching complements the methods used by that younger student's teacher, rather than contradicting anything and potentially creating more confusion. Apparently a 2-year age gap is most effective. And it may surprise some people watching to know that an extensive block of block of focus sessions is more effective than having a programme over a longer period of time. Emphasis on oral language skills is also given a +5 score, but can have an even bigger impact with younger or disadvantaged pupils. I think something I definitely need to do in my own lessons is ensure that every child has opportunities to speak out loud and articulate their thoughts every lesson, whether that be about how they want to tackle a problem or how they achieved their answer. I think that increased structured oral communication would come into play when we as teachers model metacognitive thinking in class. And the more we do that, the more our students will become used to thinking out loud themselves and be able to articulate themselves, and overall be more logical, methodical thinkers. And there's a lot more research behind metacognition itself, which ranks very highly with effectiveness. Reading comprehension is the most effective strategy in these slides. In every subject at school, pupils need to comprehend the question in the assessment, and they also need to have comprehended the knowledge that they need for it before they can then construct their answer in the best possible way. The research shows that when reading comprehension is explicitly taught across their curriculum, it's most effective to help their progress across all their subjects, rather than only seeing or knowing how to comprehend certain texts in certain subjects, like English, for example. Studies also concluded that it's important that the texts used with our priority pupils are challenging but not overwhelming, because that can have a negative effect on our learners. So I found it interesting to read that aspirational conversations or motivational conversations with our pupils actually has no positive impact on student success if used alone. The research shows that if students aren't achieving as highly as their peers, it's often not due to low aspiration, it's due to another reason. So we need to target whatever those other reasons are, and point them in the direction of intervention to help with those. Conversations about raising aspirations alone doesn't have any impact. But I know that in schools that I've worked in and seen, lots of those motivational conversations do lead to other interventions happening, which will then, of course, have impact. So on this slide, I have ranked some other strategies and their impact according to research. Some of these are perhaps in a controversial position on the board, but of course they all come with a caveat, and that schools and staff can manage these either effectively or ineffectively, depending on exactly how they're working in schools. So I hope it has been helpful to think about some of these strategies and potentially given you some food for thought about how strategies could be adjusted in your setting to be more effective.